Hello everyone. Today I'm here to present my poorly drawn coming out story, starring Magus, or Dylan, whatever catches your fancy. Let's start at the beginning. I was born on July the 9th, 1998, to a loving father, at least in his 40s when I was born, a mother in her late 20s to early 30s, and two older brothers, Timothy, with a terribly drawn soccer ball in one hand, and John, with no other detail on him because details are hard, and me, the baby of the bunch. To say I moved around a lot as a small child was a bit of an understatement. Each circle and line here is a town I'd lived in prior to starting primary school. Why did I move a lot? Well, it's a pretty simple, kind of sad reason. My parents separated when I was really young. Most of the story takes place at number 6 on this list, obviously, seeing as you'll find out, that's where I lived most of my life. This town was where I first started primary school, around the age of 4. It was a Catholic school in a country town, so obviously not the best environment to be learning tolerance of sexual minorities. The first year, which we called prep or foundation now, I think, was pretty uneventful. My second year, weirdly called grade 1 in the education system I was in, however, was different. I met someone. I met a girl. I remember being all hot and bothered and flustered when I first met her. She was exactly the kind of person I wanted to be friends with. And like an idiot who didn't understand how social cues worked, I kissed her on the first day we met. Don't ask why the kissing lips look like Birdo's. I can't tell you. Well, I can. I suck at drawing. I remember kids being shocked, teachers being confused, and other kids laughing at me for liking a girl. For liking a girl. Kids suck. The years went by. We had our issues, our arguments, rather large falling out for a while, but then we found each other again. Until the final day of primary school. I learned she had to move to another city with her parents. For once I wasn't the one moving, and it felt fucking awful. But I remember that day really fondly. I remember her kissing me again and telling me that she loved me. I remember telling her the same thing. Then high school began. Yeah, did it ever begin. It was another Catholic institution, but thankfully it was slightly more progressive in that the openly gay student in our year level was only bullied by other kids and not by the teachers. During high school, I remained in touch with the girl and, in fact, we started a relationship. Well, relationship, by that I mean we saw each other over school holidays, we'd act pseudo-cutesy and call each other now and again, but it was the same as any other long-distance friendship, with the occasional kiss now and again. People would call us, sweethearts based on my description of our interactions, and during this time, she actually came out to me as asexual. I remember thinking, nah, that's pretty fair. I'm not really feeling up to sex and sexuality anyway. I might be asexual myself. Shit, was I wrong. And then, grade 9 happened. This was, as I like to call it, the year. Halfway through that year, a new student moved into the school. 2 of them, but only one was important for this story. They had the face and body of that normal sporty kid you'd see in school, with the kind of attitude that basically said, I'll snot you if you step the wrong way. And I was obsessed with this boy. I didn't know how to describe it then, but I know now it was infatuation. At the time, these feelings made me really angry. Why angry? I didn't know. And then it became concern. Where was my mind? I had a girlfriend, one that I'd had for years even. I had thought of a future with her just as much as other people had. But then there was this boy, and I felt so much for him in a small span of time. Bear in mind I'm a fucking teenager, hormones are dumb, but I was conflicted. I couldn't be gay, I was in a relationship with a woman I loved. Meanwhile, on the internet, I was absolutely doing what good kids shouldn't do and looking at porn on Tumblr. Listen, Pornhub felt too porny, and Tumblr was more artsy about it, but this was also where I started reading more about LGBTQIA+ matters and such. Learned a bit about the people that sat outside the LGB of it all, and it was intriguing to me. A part of me knew, I just didn't connect the dots until a lot later. But with all this looking, in this introspection and the porn, came guilt. Guilt that I was betraying my lover, or whatever dramatic shit I'd read in Shakespeare that year. We studied a lot of Shakespeare in high school, like in Hamlet, King Lear. Some kids did Romeo and Juliet, I didn't, because I was cool and in literature, but that's beside the point. During this tumultuous mental period in which there was a lot more going on, a lot of mental illness, but that's beside the point, I jumped the gun, so to speak, and came out as bisexual rather lackadaisically. That's how you pronounce that word, I think. Sitting where I am now, the phrase "bi now, gay later" comes to mind. But while I've seen that term used a lot, I want to put out there that you shouldn't use it to belittle the feelings of bisexual or biromantic people. Bisexuality is valid as fuck and should be respected just as much as any other of the letters in the LGBTQIA+ community, no matter what gender identity their attraction leans towards. If you see a bisexual person in a hetero-romantic relationship, don't tell them they're not bi, that's just a crock of shit. And then year 12 came along, the final year of high school. You'd think that this would be the perfect time for me to shoot my shot, so to speak, and, say that I'm attracted to this guy before we all disappear and scatter, right? Well, you'd be wrong on that front. Because where once stood my first serious crush was empty space. He left school at the end of year 11 for parts unknown. I remember thinking that it was my fault, that I'd scared him off. I still don't know where he is or what he's doing now, but that's for the best. I wouldn't be able to move on if he remained in my life, I don't think. The year kept going on, and the passage of time was kind of creeping up on me. That makes me sound like 86. I promise I'm in my early 20s. And by August, I realized that I might never see many of the people in this year level again. I might, but I might not as well. And I began to open up a bit more. It was a freeing feeling, honestly, being able to interact with a wider variety of classmates and not feel shunned, even if they talk shit about me behind my back without me knowing. I didn't know if they did that, and I don't really care much to know because my memories of that final year are pretty good, all things considered. Then it would have been late August, when I finally came out to everyone. I remember over the past few weeks at that time, I'd been agonizing so much over this decision. Wondering whether I was doing the right thing by anyone, but I knew I had to. So I messaged her first. On Skype of all things, I broke up with her by coming out as gay on Skype. What a champion. I asked her not to be angry. I was so fucking scared she'd shun me, tell me to get fucked, call me names and such. I didn't want to hurt her by telling her the truth, but I had to. I didn't get that response, thankfully. I simply got told that she loved me anyway and was really glad that I was finally able to live my truth. She probably knew. I was exactly the most naturally masculine person out there, and since everyone had grown up in country towns, feminine male equaled gay. But she took it really well. I remember reading that and bursting into tears. I was so fucking grateful to her. After that, I began steadily coming out to other friends over the phone because, that's how it went those days. And their responses ranged from relentless love to, "Just don't hit on me, lol," to, "I thought you already came out as gay." It was fun explaining the difference between gay and bisexual to them, but, Then I came out to my mother. This was really different. She seemed focused on my safety first and foremost, asking me whether I was sure, reiterating that I wasn't certain since I hadn't done anything with the boy. Bear in mind, she'd taken me coming out as bisexual really well, all things considered. Maybe it was that she didn't think I'd leave the girl I'd love to go date boys instead. I don't know what she was thinking, but she didn't take it incredibly well initially. This made me hesitant to tell my dad. He was a lot older than Mum, possibly more conservative in his beliefs, but that fear ended up being really misguided. I remember telling him as I sat in the car beside him that I was gay, crying more than I usually did, and I remember him looking at me and saying, "Honestly, as long as you end up with someone you love, we still love you. You're our son, and I won't ever fault you for looking for happiness." That was paraphrased, of course, but that rings in the back of my head every time I doubt myself in regards to my sexual identity. My family will love me, no matter what I end up being. So why can't I just be myself? The weeks went on, and I had assumed that Mum and Dad had had a talk, discussed it, and Mum had taken it well overall. Then I made a stupid joke about not worrying about teenage pregnancy, and she responded poorly. She basically went on this whole tirade about how you can't know you're gay, you've never been with a boy, you've been with a girl for so long, and at the same time, she kind of denied the possibility of asexuality, basically saying there's no way you two were together for that long and neither of you felt sexual feelings for one another. Well, Mum, sorry to say, neither of us felt sexual feelings for another. We got into a bit of an argument, and that's when I learned that my brothers knew. I hadn't come out to them personally, but Mum had told them. Thankfully, they couldn't give less than a shit about it. And, I haven't had issues with them since. I've been really fucking thankful for my brothers since then, actually, because they've been some of the best support into adulthood I've ever had in my life. That was in 2016, and the year after, I went to uni. I was studying Bachelor of Creative Arts, majoring in writing, as my parents like to say, and as everyone else liked to say, I was studying to work at McDonald's full-time. But I remember early in that year, I downloaded Grindr and the dating apps and such. I'd actually downloaded them late 2016, but that's another story entirely. And Mum had once caught me after a date and basically told me, delete that shit off your phone, give me that person's name and address and phone number so that I can look them up on the police database. I was like, phew, that's aggressive. But I get it, she was trying to protect me. It didn't protect me at all. And I ended up basically having to say to her over the phone at one point, while I was at uni, listen, I'm gonna bring someone home at some point, and whether they're a man, a woman, or anything else, you better treat with them with the same amount of respect you would treat if I brought a woman home or if my brothers brought a woman home. She went, yep, okay, that's fair. Ever since then, haven't had any issues related to my sexuality with my mother. Not one. And fucking, I can work with that. I could go more in depth in terms of the dating and the Grindr and stuff like that, but I feel like that's a story for another time. I'm now 22 years old, and since 2016, 2017, I've learned a lot about myself in terms of my sexuality, my sexual identity, and some of my hopes for the future. I've struggled as if that isn't already obvious as fuck, and I've evolved as everyone my age and around my age bracket happens to do. I know what I am in terms of my sexuality at least, and I'm pretty grateful for that. I have some foothold on this stupid climbing wall that is life. I want to thank everyone that watched this. It's a bit of a soul-bearing moment for me, I'll admit, and I might do a few more poorly drawns regarding other aspects of my life, maybe mental illness, relationships, I don't know. Those have spotty histories because of poor memory related to, guess what, depression. But it would be nice to discuss more of my life in a bit more depth. Who knows? Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope this inspires people who haven't been able to speak out about their story to speak out about their story. Every story, in my opinion, is important, and telling the good as well as the mediocre and the bad is really fucking important to have a community that understands the good as well as the evil that can happen in this world. I love you all, and I will, I guess, see you guys whenever the hell next time is. Bye!